The movie begins in 1990 when an organization called Async Corporation is conducting a secret research project. One of their explorers, Naren, is making a live recording through a camera. He has entered a strange and terrifying multi-dimensional place known as the Backrooms. Everywhere he looks, endless yellow hallways stretch out in every direction. Terrified and confused, he desperately wants to find a way out. Suddenly, Naren notices a set of cables lying on the floor. Following them, he eventually reaches a room filled with video equipment and camera gear. He quickly drags a large storage box in front of the door to block the entrance, hoping to keep anything from getting inside. After that, he tries to contact his teammates using a radio. He explains that he has become separated from his team and urgently needs help. While speaking, he suddenly hears a strange noise coming from a nearby room. Nervously, Naren moves toward the sound, only to discover that it is just a bird. Another unfortunate creature trapped inside the Backrooms, just like him. Relieved for a moment, Naren continues exploring. The deeper he goes, the stranger the place becomes. Some pieces of furniture appear unfinished, and many areas look like distorted copies of the real world. Before long, however, Naren realizes he is not alone. A horrifying creature known as a still life begins stalking him through the endless corridors. Panic takes over as Naren runs for his life, desperately searching for a place to hide or escape. Unfortunately, he fails to get away and eventually falls victim to the terrifying creature's attack. Meanwhile, the scientists at Async watch everything unfold on their monitors. Despite witnessing the horror in real time, there is nothing they can do to save Naren. The story then jumps forward several years to the present day. We meet a woman named Dr. Mary Klein, who stands sadly watching her childhood home being demolished. Wanting to preserve a piece of the past, she decides to keep the handprints she and her mother made together when she was a child as a cherished memory. Next, we are introduced to Clark. His wife has recently left him, and since then he has been struggling with severe alcoholism and emotional instability. He owns a furniture store called Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire, but the business is on the verge of collapse. After work, Clark attends a therapy session with Dr. Mary Klein. During the session, he opens up about his problems and admits that he feels completely alone. To help him process his emotions, Mary role-plays as his wife and asks him why their marriage fell apart. Clark confesses that his anger was the main reason his marriage failed. Even after being kicked out of the house, he is still the one paying the household expenses and all the bills. He explains that one day, after returning home stressed from work, he got into an argument with his wife and smashed a glass in anger. Clark complains that he constantly feels crushed under the pressure of paying bills and worrying about money, yet he has no one to support him. He also points out that he sacrificed a great deal for his wife, even paying for her college tuition himself. After venting all of his anger and frustration in front of Mary, Clark finally feels a sense of relief. Later, dressed as a pirate named Captain Clark, he teams up with his assistant manager Kat and her boyfriend Bobby to shoot a commercial for his store. The goal is to attract new customers by offering special discounts. However, everything quickly falls apart when the chair Clark is sitting on suddenly breaks during the shoot. Later, Clark meets with an electrician to fix the store's electrical issues. Even though the shop is practically on the verge of closing, the electricity bills remain unusually high. Together, they head down into the basement to locate the electrical panel. During their inspection, they discover 3 strange breaker switches that appear to be completely disconnected from the rest of the building's electrical system. This discovery only makes the mystery surrounding the store even more unsettling. That same night, while Clark is watching TV inside the shop, the television suddenly shuts off on its own. It becomes clear that ever since his wife kicked him out of the house, he has been living inside the store. He immediately starts searching for the cause of the problem, but can't figure anything out. A few moments later, all the lights in the shop suddenly turn on by themselves. They begin flickering violently before going dark again. Disturbed and unable to relax, Clark drives to his old home and silently watches his wife from outside. The next day, Dr. Mary appears during her therapy sessions, but she is struggling with her own emotional wounds. She is still trying to cope with memories of her sick mother and the trauma of losing her childhood home. The following night, Clark settles down once again to watch TV in the store. Suddenly, a strange blue room flashes across the screen for less than a second before everything returns to normal. That brief glimpse is enough to convince Clark that something unnatural is happening inside the building. Determined to uncover the truth, he begins investigating on his own and heads back down to the basement to examine the fuse box. He shuts off every switch, plunging the entire store into darkness. That's when he notices a mysterious light shining from inside one of the walls. Drawn toward it, Clark reaches out and touches the wall, only to pass straight through it. On the other side, he finds himself in the same yellow backrooms that were shown at the beginning of the movie. Completely shocked, Clark realizes that the wall functions like a portal, allowing travel between two different worlds. Driven by curiosity, he ventures deeper into the backrooms. There he discovers a massive pile of furniture that looks remarkably similar to the displays from his own store. Carefully, he begins exploring the endless, eerie hallways. During his search, he comes across the same dead bird that was shown at the start of the film. Wandering through the area, he comes across a strange statue that is playing an old audio recording. Nearby, he discovers a passageway littered with abandoned belongings. The items appear to belong to the researcher Naren, the same man who mysteriously vanished at the beginning of the story. Following the path, Clark enters another room. There he notices shoes and chairs half sunken into the floor, as if they had been left unfinished while being created. Suddenly, he hears a distant sound echoing through the darkness. Driven by curiosity, he moves toward it and calls out, asking if anyone is there. But then he sees something absolutely horrifying and immediately decides to back away. Unfortunately, the terrifying skeletal creature known as Still Life begins chasing him. Running for his life, Clark reaches the spot where he originally entered the backrooms. Somehow, he manages to find the correct path and escapes back to his basement. Before leaving, however, he takes a piece of furniture from that mysterious world and brings it back with him. Alongside his fear, a dangerous obsession with the strange place has now started to grow inside him. What Clark doesn't realize is that a scientist from Async Corporation has already witnessed everything through the CCTV cameras installed throughout the backrooms. Clark later visits Dr. Mary Klein again and tries to tell her everything about the backrooms. He explains that he has discovered a place beneath his shop that feels like an endless maze of interconnected subspaces that never seem to end. He even shows her a map in an attempt to prove his story, but Mary refuses to believe him. She assumes his claims are simply the result of his alcoholism and worsening mental state. Frustrated and desperate, Clark swears that he will return with undeniable proof and force Mary to believe him. Afterward, he meets Kat and Bobby, who work at his store, and convinces them to investigate the mysterious area hidden beneath the building. He tells them to bring a camera so they can record everything they find. A few hours later, the three of them set out on their mission. As they prepare to enter the unknown, Kat and Bobby can't help but laugh, still unaware of the nightmare waiting for them below. When Clark says he can actually walk straight through walls, everyone laughs in disbelief, but their laughter instantly fades when Clark steps directly into the wall right in front of them and disappears. Both of them are terrified. Still, Clark encourages them to come inside as well. Eventually, they follow him and enter that strange world. Everything feels incredibly unsettling to Kat, but Clark keeps leading both of them deeper through the endless corridors. They record everything they see on camera as they move forward. For safety, Clark ties a rope around Bobby's waist and lowers him into a narrow passage with the camera to find out what lies ahead. Clark and Kat carefully lower Bobby down using the rope. After squeezing through the tight corridors, Bobby reaches a room below. There he discovers piles of clothes scattered all over the floor. Suddenly, the light in the room ahead begins flickering on its own. Then, without warning, he comes face to face with the same terrifying Still Life. Horrified, Bobby immediately turns and runs. When he finally gets back up, he warns Clark that something extremely dangerous is lurking below. But before anyone can react, the rope tied around Bobby suddenly goes taut. The Still Life begins dragging him downward. Clark and Kat do everything they can to save him, but Bobby is eventually pulled screaming into the darkness. A moment later, Clark and Kat are attacked as well. Both of them fall through the same narrow passage and watch in horror as the Still Life drags Bobby through the wall to the other side. Kat immediately rushes into the maze-like corridors to rescue him, but she mysteriously disappears too. Now completely terrified, Clark desperately searches for a way out. The problem is that he can no longer remember where he originally entered from. As he wanders through the endless passages, he discovers a strange room containing a Christmas tree. Suddenly, a mysterious Still Life woman begins slowly approaching him. Panicking, Clark runs away and locks himself inside what appears to be an endless bathroom-like space. After some time, he starts hearing Kat's voice coming from beyond the walls. The disturbing part is that he cannot tell which direction the voice is coming from. At the same time, Still Life picks up the camera he left behind and slowly begins moving toward him. Meanwhile, Dr. Mary reflects on her past. She remembers that when she was a child, her mother used to cover all the windows and doors of their house with sheets of paper and constantly warned her never to go outside. Because of her mental illness, Mary's mother believed that the outside world was an extremely dangerous place. Mary suddenly snaps out of the memory and begins examining those old fingerprints once again. Just then, a message appears on her answering machine from Clark. In it, he says that he will never be coming back. Hearing this, Mary becomes deeply concerned and immediately heads toward Clark's shop. Meanwhile, Phil, a scientist working for the Async Corporation, sees a commercial for Clark's shop on TV while at home and instantly recognizes Clark's face. At the same time, Mary arrives at the shop in search of Clark, but the place is completely empty. She makes her way down to the basement, where she discovers a map of the Backrooms created by Clark, along with a strange design drawn across the wall. She carefully studies everything around her. Then, right before her eyes, a fly suddenly passes straight through the wall. The sight leaves her stunned. Cautiously, she reaches her hand into the wall and realizes that Clark had been telling the truth all along. Despite the danger, she decides to enter the mysterious world in order to find him. Once inside, Mary wanders through endless corridors, constantly calling out Clark's name. After a long search, she eventually reaches a room where a disturbing drawing is painted on the wall. The image depicts a terrifying monster slaughtering human beings. Suddenly, Clark appears behind her. When Mary asks where they are, Clark replies in a mysterious tone, "This place is a combination of every place we've ever been." But before he can explain any further, a loud noise suddenly echoes through the hallways. Clark tells Mary to stay quiet, and without warning, he grabs her throat and knocks her unconscious. Mary once again drifts into memories of her past. She relives a childhood moment when hospital staff were taking her mother into a medical ward, leaving her completely alone at home afterward. For a brief moment, it seems as if these painful memories are becoming part of the Backrooms themselves. When Mary regains consciousness, she finds herself tied to a chair in what looks like a dining room. Alongside Clark, 3 bizarre humanoid figures are sitting there. Clark explains that the Backrooms imitate objects and places from the outside world. Whenever a person enters, the Backrooms attempt to recreate people and locations based on that person's memories. However, the copies are never perfect and always emerge in a twisted, distorted form. He then demonstrates that these creatures feel neither pain nor emotion. In fact, they have become nothing more than a source of food for him. Finally, Clark opens a refrigerator and reveals Kat's severed head to Mary. This makes it clear that Kat has already been killed inside the Backrooms. Terrified, Mary begs Clark to let her go. But Clark only wants to hear one thing, that the collapse of his marriage was not his fault. He then pulls a strand of hair from the head of a nearby still-life woman and places it on Mary, imagining that she is his wife. Treating her as if she were the woman he lost, he begins desperately apologizing. Over and over again, he insists that he did everything he could to save their relationship. In reality, the Backrooms had become a world where Clark could escape from his mistakes and failures. It was a place where he never had to admit he was wrong, a place where he could always convince himself that he was right. But when Mary forces him to confront the truth and tells him that no one else is responsible for his downfall except himself, Clark's illusion finally begins to shatter. For the first time, he is forced to face reality. Overcome with emotion, he decides to set Mary free. But at that very moment, the still-life woman standing behind him suddenly runs away. And almost instantly, a horrifying monster in the form of Captain Clark appears. This is no ordinary creature. It is a twisted manifestation of Clark's buried rage, pride, guilt, and failures. A dark reflection of everything he tried to hide. The Backrooms had transformed those emotions into a real monster. Clark tries to calm the creature, as if he is confronting the darkest part of his own soul. But the monster refuses to listen. It lunges at him and viciously tears into his neck, killing him in a brutal attack. In the end, Clark becomes a victim of his own darkness. Mary manages to escape and runs for her life. After wandering through the Backrooms, she eventually reaches an area that looks like a strange and distorted copy of the neighborhood where Kat and Bobby once lived. But Captain Clark's still-life creation is still pursuing her. As she desperately tries to flee, Mary suffers serious injuries, making it difficult for her to keep moving. Soon, Captain Clark closes in on her. In a desperate attempt to survive, Mary squeezes through a narrow passage and reaches a high platform. From there, she catches a glimpse of the vast and terrifying world of the backrooms, stretching endlessly before her. After wandering for some time, she enters a section that resembles a twisted replica of Clark's furniture store. But before she can understand what is happening, Captain Clark finds her once again. Fighting back, Mary attacks the creature and manages to break one of its wooden legs. However, during the struggle, she accidentally activates a device, releasing a strange gas that quickly spreads throughout the room. Seizing the opportunity, Captain Clark once again attempts to overpower her. But then Mary pulls out the small stone hand she has kept in her pocket since childhood, a keepsake tied to her memories, and slams it into Captain Clark with all her strength. She then escapes through a narrow passage and makes it to the other side. The moment she emerges, several masked figures surround her and spray her with gas. These people are actually scientists from Async Corporation, who have now taken complete control of the situation. Mary is taken to a secure facility where the scientists conduct a series of tests on her. Meanwhile, the scientists have also captured Captain Clark's steel life and are attempting to bring it under their control. Sometime later, Mary is escorted into an interrogation room where she meets Phil. He wants to know how Mary managed to reach the backrooms. When Mary tells him about Clark's shop, Phil shows her photographs of both the store and Clark, confirming her story. He then reveals that Async originally started as a company that manufactured MRI machines. However, everything changed after the discovery of the backrooms. Their mission is now focused on understanding this mysterious world and mapping its endless corridors. Phil explains that Async has been researching the backrooms for years, yet they still know very little about it. At first, Mary cooperates with the interrogation, but the moment she begins to suspect that she may not be allowed to leave alive once the questioning is over, she stops answering their questions. At the same time, the film reveals another terrifying truth. The backrooms don't just trap people, they learn from them. They absorb human memories, emotions, and psychological trauma, then begin creating distorted imitations based on them. Now, the backrooms are doing the same thing to Mary. Slowly, new rooms begin to appear, each one shaped by her memories. But as always, these copies are never quite right. Everything looks slightly broken, slightly distorted, and deeply unsettling, as if something is trying to recreate human memories without truly understanding them. The result is a nightmare version of reality. The backrooms have even begun creating a twisted steel-life replica of the interrogation room itself, along with a distorted copy of Mary sitting inside it. And with that chilling revelation, the movie comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.